Hi, I'm Kristen. Disrupting traditional management consulting through the power of AI technology is not just a movement, it's the heart of our mission. Here at Culturefy, we're empowering leaders and employees to take action. But more importantly, we're dedicated to creating work-life cultures that are world-changing. I'm so excited that you decided to join us today to be part of this roundtable discussion as we explore what's trending in HR. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us today for another series of our What's Trending in HR. Today, we are talking about talent management and skills mastery and how innovative learning tactics really do more than just attract and retain the best. They also enhance your brand's competitive edge in the market. So if you're new to our series, we're here every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and we're joined by a panel of subject matter experts and thought leaders in this space. And today we have the pleasure of having two thought leaders joining us today who have a lot to say on this subject. So first of all, I'd love to welcome Wayne Davis, owner and principal consultant and contract CHRO at WC Davis People Solutions. Wayne, would you care to say a few words just as introduction? Thanks so much for being here with us today.
And thank you for having me here today, and I'm especially honored to be on the panel with Lucinda. So I'm just excited, and I'll tell you, I have a big passion in this topic. As a matter of fact, the element of learning and development is where I started my career over 30 years ago, and I also spent some time in public and private education. So I definitely have a strong passion for skill development and what it can mean for an organization.
Perfect. Well, I'm excited to dive into our conversation and hear more about your experience and what you've seen really work and move the needle. So thank you so much, Wayne. And we also have Lucinda Smith here today. Lucinda is a former global CHRO and also our senior culture advisor here at Culturefy. Thank you so much for being on our panel today, Lucinda. Would you care to just say a few words as introduction?
Yeah, thanks so much, Kristen, and I appreciate you all having me today. And I'm really excited to join Wayne and excited for our conversation here today. Yeah, I have a passion for the whole skill building and learning and talent management area. It's such a critical area for organizations. In addition to the work that I do with Culturefy, I work with CHROs and chief people officers through the SHRM Executive Network. And this is a topic high on, or at least, or top of the list for many CHROs and their organizations. I mean, it's just sort of the linchpin in people development and people operations. So I'm really excited to talk about this today. Wayne and I think, have similar careers and similar career spans in HR. So it's going to be fun to share our stories and ideas and experiences here today. And we look forward to also hearing from our participants and what questions they might have. So just excited to be here. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lucinda. And as you both mentioned, we're really excited to dive into this conversation today. And as Lucinda said, you are tuning in live today. We really want you to be part of this conversation as well. So make sure you take advantage of the chat function. And we also have a Q&A where you can drop anonymous questions so that I'm not the only one asking questions of our panelists. We want to hear from you guys as well so that we're answering those questions as well. So please feel free as the conversation goes to drop in your anonymous questions in our Q&A and also share the experiences about what you guys are seeing, what is working well, what your questions are, what your challenges are in chat. And we'll be able to add that to the conversation. And today we are talking about elevating your brand's talent strategy, and we'll be exploring innovative approaches to leadership learning that will help you attract and retain top talent in today's competitive market. So as Wayne and Lucinda both alluded to, this is a critical conversation, really always. But as we began preparing for this What's Trending in HR series at the start of the year, this was a topic that really important for leaders across industries. And so to kick things off, I just want to share a few quick stats. I won't go too in depth with this, but just to kind of share a little bit of the dialogue that was floating around at the start of the year around this topic. And of course, most of this will not be new to those of you on the call with us today. But when it comes to building future-ready workforce, closing the talent gap is critical. And studies project that by 2025, which is really just around the corner, roughly half of global employees will need new skills. And while we know that it's often more cost effective to upskill existing employees versus hiring new, the number of organizations investing in skills training is really not keeping up. And the stat that was surveyed for this report, this Outlook report from 2024 by Hub International, found that of their respondents, 68% recognize the importance of upskilling, but only 38% are actively investing in it. So there is a gap there, and we want to talk about, how we can help close that gap by what people are doing in this space. So to get into our conversation, I'm just going to kick it off to Wayne. Love to hear from your thoughts on this. So, what are some of the key challenges you're seeing organizations face in talent management and skill development today? And maybe how are those challenges evolving? How have those been evolving over your career?
Okay, excellent. So, Kristen, one of the things that really stood out to me, with the statistics that you shared, is that gap between knowing that there is the need, but a significantly smaller percentage doing something about it. And in my experience, what I've seen is the gap comes from the standpoint of not having clear alignment with talent development and the objectives of the business. That is so, so critical. As Lucinda mentioned in her introduction, that overall talent management piece, meaning the organization has specific goals, a vision, objectives, a strategy, where they're trying to take the business in increasing shareholder value, as well as fulfilling the responsibilities corporations are feeling on an increase in the area of corporate accountability, corporate citizenship, so forth. I mean, the whole spectrum of what is drawing the attention and the challenging senior leadership, or as we say, keeping them up at night. And the key is as people leaders, us understanding that we have stewardship for the organization over the most important asset. And I know a lot of companies say that people are their most important asset. Well, the fact of the matter, it's true, because it is the only asset that can actually increase in the value of what it contributes to that growth, to the development, to the adaptability of an organization in a changing economy, changing market, which we always see. Business cycles, economic growth, recession, so forth. People are what make the organization adaptable. But the key is effectively aligning the development strategy and the development action to not only support, but drive that strategy, drive those initiatives, drive that adaptability, the growth, and honing people's capabilities to deliver that to the organization. I think oftentimes we have gapped in that area and we've checked the box on compliance, which again, I'm not finding fault with the importance of compliance. We have to make sure we operate in a compliant environment, a compliant culture and organization. But more importantly, we need commitment. And people are committed when they realize that the organization is equally concerned about their optimization or them achieving their full potential, which in turn drives the organization's full potential if there's alignment. And to me, that's the challenge is as people leaders, and speaking especially to the learning and development leaders who report up quite frequently, typically to the overall people leaders, it's making sure that when a client comes and says, meaning internal client comes and says, hey, I want this particular training for my people, they're not afraid to say, but why? I know it feels like you sound like a small child to your parents going, but why? But why? But that's what you need to ask, because oftentimes they think they know what they want. Well, they know what they want, but they're not the experts in people development. You are. As leader learning and development professionals, as senior people and HR leaders, that's your bailiwick. That's your lane, is understanding people development. And you need to speak up and ask those questions that are going to enable you to better align that development to what the actual need is, not what the perceived need is. And I think as we overcome that challenge, we literally see those numbers coming together, not this one dropping, but this one climbing. The actual application, the actual utilization of development initiatives and efforts in organizations climb to match and even push that number higher up as CEOs, chairman of board speak with their peers in and outside their industries. And they're going, well, what's happening to your organization? Why are you driving? Why are you growing so well? And they're able to turn back and say, we're better tying into our people. And what they're doing is driving this growth because of what we're doing and investing in them. But I'll get off my soapbox now because I'd love to hear Lucy's
No.
perspective on that.
Yeah, Wayne, very well said. And that, and that in turn drives employee engagement in an organization, which is so important. I mean, so many of these things are connected. But as we talk about trends and what's going on right now in this area, I wanted to kind of also touch on the training piece, the skills development piece, and kind of some of the things that we're seeing there today. One thing I want to throw out there is, as we grew up in HR, it was face-to-face, classroom-based training. And now that just doesn't exist so much anymore due to the hybrid model that many of us are working in. So I think we've got that idea out there, but then we're talking about upskilling. And, you've got to hire for skills first before you even can upskill people. And I think a lot of organizations, though, aren't necessarily doing that yet, or maybe that's not necessarily on their radar. So before we upskill, we got to hire for skills, not for experience. And then I think we look at, well, are you building versus buying? Are you hiring for the skills? Are you training for the skills, or are you doing both? So anyway, I think that's a trend that we're seeing is skills-based hiring and skill building. And these topics are really kind of on the rise as companies are looking at recruiting for potential rather than recruiting for degrees. I think that is a big shift that we're seeing here, and that skills-based hiring, and this is from something that SHRM has done, is up 63% over the past year. And more employers are valuing experience now over academic qualifications. So I think that is really an interesting trend. And it's not necessarily even a trend. I mean, I think it's just a shift. So the skills-based hiring, when we talk, so we got to do that before we, train for skills and upskill, but it helps to remove career barriers for folks, especially folks coming into the workforce, and then salary barriers, because when you look at the workforce and the shortage of folks in the workforce, 2/3 of adults in the United States don't even have a degree. So this opens up a whole new pool of talent for employers. The skills-based hiring broadens the talent pool, it increases the speed to hire, and then it also adds greater diversity of thought in the workforce. So I just want to throw that idea out there as we continue to discuss, because it's not, like I said, necessarily a trend, but I think it's a practice that's growing, and it's going to be here to stay. So I think that impacts a lot of how we bring people in and how we upskill and how we train folks too.
If I could add on what you just said, Lucinda, one of the things I think is key with that skill-based hiring and even skill-based focus on continued learning and development is if we look at the skills effectively, it also helps us understand an underlying attitude and behaviors, which are also critical. Because that's one thing that, I think, as this trend points to, a degree doesn't guarantee a work ethic. It definitely doesn't guarantee demonstrable skills and the ability to understand when and how to apply those skills effectively in the different situations that we face in the work setting. More and more, at least my observation is, part of that emphasis on skill-based learning is the fact that the larger organizations get, or even if they're small to medium-sized organizations, so many things are being thrown at them as far as unique situations and challenges faced by their customers, which means in turn faced by their employee. The more and more the employees themselves, without having to always turn to their upline leadership, are having to be the solutionists, be the ones that identify, diagnose properly the problem and underlying issues, and work with the client and as well their upline leadership in identifying and applying the solutions. And that really calls upon having skills, tangible skills, but also mental problem-solving skills that I think if we're searching for that, obviously those will have to have been demonstrated in order for them to come out in that hiring and selection process. And we need the attitudes that help build those skills, because those are the attitudes that are going to help individuals engage and help us retain that caliber of individual. And as you said, that's the foundation for upskilling. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I'm hearing you guys correctly, I mean, it sounds like you're speaking a lot about organizational alignment and understanding your culture, right? And that connection between your culture and strategy and brand. And one of the things that we talk a lot about at Culturify is just that fusion between your brand and your culture, right? Where your brand is who you are, but your culture is your brand in action. And so when it comes to leadership development and skills development, we want to understand our people, right? A couple weeks ago, we had a next generation webinar where we dove into the changing priorities. A few weeks back, we talked about the changing educational backgrounds, all of which we go into so much more. So a little plug, if you want more on some of these things that Wayne and Lucinda are hinting at right now, go back and look at some of our older webinars. But just to show that interconnectedness, and so I would love to hear from you both. What does it look like? What have you seen are some examples of successful talent management and skills development strategies that are having a significant impact on organizational culture, on overall employer branding? What is working well to address some of these challenges that you guys are highlighting?
do you want to go first, Lucinda?
Sure. Well, let me just talk about, the building the strategy, and then I think we can talk about maybe some examples, and even folks in our audience can maybe even share some of their ideas and examples too. But really, when you look at strategy, your HR strategy, your talent development strategy needs to flow from your overall corporate strategy. And that is all really based on your brand and your culture too, as Kristen said. So much informs all of this. But the talent development strategy is really a comprehensive and proactive approach to several things: to attracting talent, to engaging employees, to growing and developing them, and to retaining workers. So when we talk about this, there's a whole lot that goes into it. And when you have this strategy and it's effective, it really is tailored to support your broader business objectives, but also empower your employees to reach their full potential. So I think when all of this works together and it's, moving forward and it's active, It really can help advance an organization. But when you're, looking at building that strategy, I think you need to look at the company objectives, first of all, understanding those and aligning those, which Wayne talked about earlier. You need to have, professionals do this in your organization, or, work with some consultants to provide, if you're doing this from scratch, to provide that foundation. Need to look at what are the needs we have in our organization, skills and talents in key roles and all roles to help move the organization forward and grow. And then really looking within the company. I think a lot of times, we look at build versus buy, and it's so important to build our talent internally. It's great to bring folks in and have new ideas and new experiences, but I think, folks are looking at longer term engagement, I think, with companies, and they're looking at having companies invest in them. So if folks are seeing, next to them, maybe on the screen, maybe in person, new people coming in, then I think folks tend to wonder, well, then where's the future, in the organization? So definitely, so that's what I think looking within means. And so there's just kind of a balance there with, developing internally and promoting, and also bringing in outside talent. And then providing career development options. That is so important. I think we talked about investing, and I think we know that that's critical, but yet a lot of companies aren't able to do that because, when you're in a downturn in an organization, I've seen this play out in different places. One of the first things that goes is investing in talent, or, cutting the training budget. So that's something I think that companies really need to look at. How can we, in good times and bad, sustain our investment in our people, which means providing, skills-based training, development training, career development options. And hopefully we have time later. I want to talk about some really interesting ideas on career development options using AI. And then also, and this is my last one, analyzing performance so that we can identify strengths and opportunities. So those things all work together, but we need to have, we need to look at what's the performance of our organization and our people, so that we can, again, move them forward, looking at, past predicts the future. And identifying strengths and opportunities. And I want to stress that real quick, because I think this is something that we don't do enough. We don't focus on identifying the strengths and developing the strengths and opportunities. I think a lot of times organizations focus on what needs to be fixed. And we all have things that need to be fixed, and we're not perfect. And I prefer to focus on developing the strengths and utilizing the strengths of folks, rather than picking on what's wrong and saying, fix this, fix this, and focusing energy on that. So I'll leave you with that, Wayne. I think you probably have some great examples.
No, first and foremost, I'd say amen to everything that Lucinda has just said. And diving into some specifics in support of what you said, I would one of the things that I think even businesses themselves are struggling with is oftentimes we begin as business leaders, and I'm talking in general business, as you said, this all has to tie in to support the business, but it's a symbiotic relationship, because as business leaders, if we get caught too much in transactional leadership as opposed to transformational leadership, meaning we can oftentimes as business leaders convince ourselves that we're being strategic when we sit down and we plan the next year, and then the next year, and then the next year. No, that's transactional. That's just building a budget and a plan for a single year. If you really want to be able to capitalize, one, on the opportunities in the marketplace, understand and execute a competitive advantage, and then align the people to support that, yes, there has to be very clear planning for the coming year, but there also needs to be a vision and a strategy that goes out 2, 3, 4, 5 years from a business perspective. because that's not only affecting all the elements of your business, from supply chain management, marketing, every other key element of your business, but especially it ties into people element, because as you're recruiting, then you're able to recruit talent who have the potential, and you're looking for the potential. And I'm talking about even at that frontline level that you're going to plan on growing, that aligns with and brings in capabilities, attitudes, habits, so forth, the skills to grow with the business and help push the business in achieving its full potential as you're helping them achieve their full potential. Because when you look on the business side of that, then all of a sudden you're getting into succession planning, and growth planning that then drives what your workforce planning looks like, which drives your recruiting. It drives your internal growth and development. And it gives people a career development path because they can see, here's the trajectory, here's where my skill set and capabilities and my interests can help the organization going towards the future, especially if one, leadership is building a transformational mindset and approach to both strategy and culture and development, but also it helps from the standpoint that leadership is recognizing and communicating it if they're being transparent with their plans. Will those plans change? Definitely. Things are very vague and blurry out 3, 4, and 5 years, but at least there's images that you can see of where you're trying to go, and that cascades down into your people strategy, as you said, Lucinda, from recruiting through developing, through performance management and leadership, and so forth. And one of those things that I think oftentimes we overlook is organizational leaders, business leaders, as well as people leaders, is that you talked about the two elements, strengths and opportunities. I just think a genuine SWOT analysis as a business, and I know everybody learned about it getting their MBA or getting their business degree, but I've seen too many organizations that don't really honestly go through that exercise each year. And I really would advise that. I know the audience here is probably mostly people leaders. You can mentor up. You can champion by modeling it yourself and looking at your, not only your own division or group, HR or people operations, but looking at the whole organization's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats with regards to the people strategy and where the people are positioned and the strength of that. And then something I advocate, especially in leadership development, but even employee development, is what I refer to as a personal SWOT analysis. And the reason the TH sound is because, as opposed to where a business has competitive threats, really as human beings, I found anyway that our threats are actually hurdles created by bad habits. We're our own worst enemy in that regard. And as we can replace bad habits with good habits, so much the better we are. But I'm a complete supporter of what you said, Lucinda, about a strengths-based and opportunities-based focus. And that's one of the things that as I have clients, as I have coached individuals over the years to complete a personal SWOT analysis, I've said, literally focus several days on identifying your strengths, even utilize different profile tools and instruments that are out there, to help you identify your strengths. Utilize people who are close to you to give you feedback on your strengths. Then when you look at your weaknesses, I give you 24 hours to do that. That's it. Because otherwise you're going to nitpick. And we all pretty much have had people, like you said, rehearse to us our weaknesses. And so we pretty much can build that list probably in about 15 minutes, let alone 24 hours. And then move on to the opportunities. Again, concentrate some strong time there. And then very little time, you'll figure out your threats and hurdles. Then when we go back through and we work through the strengths, one of the things when we ultimately finally, and what they can do to build on their strengths, reinforce them, even augment them. I was taught something years ago between a saying my father had and then a great executive mentor told me. My father used to say, beware of the man with a hammer in his hand, because to him, everything in life looks like a nail. And then my mentor executive early in my career said, Wayne, beware of your greatest strengths. They are like a double-edged sword. When wielded properly, they're an amazing instrument. When wielded inappropriately at the right time or in the wrong way, they become a dangerous weapon. And as we talk more about it, he talked about the impact they can have on creating blind spots. So as I would move into the weaknesses with my clients, the one thing I would say is look at your weaknesses and first and foremost, identify the ones that are actually your greatest strengths misapplied. Because that's not telling you that you have a weakness to overcome. That tells you have amazing strength to manage and utilize it in the right way and not use it in a way that creates a blind spot. I have to tell you, that simple exercise has been transformative for so many people, including myself, to help me stay focused, as you said, Lucinda, on my strengths and opportunities, but also putting my weaknesses into perspective and even helping mitigate some of them by simply managing my greatest strengths and applying them more effectively and more appropriately. So that's just something, as you were talking, that just jumped out to me as being a critical point for both businesses and individuals is longer term visioning and planning, and then supporting it with that regular cadence of just look internally, take stock in your toolkit and your current status, which a SWOT analysis or SWOT in the case of personal exercise can provide a great foundation and perspective for where you are today and the toolkit you have to take you into that future vision that you have both as a business, an organization, and an individual.
Yeah, I love what you guys are both saying. I mean, because it's really all about looking at our people through a holistic lens, right? About what are their strengths, leaning into those, as Lucinda said, and then, but not being pigeonholed, right? We don't, we're more than maybe our strengths, and there are maybe other aspects that our people bring to the table that could be great for longevity, great for future opportunities within our organization. And at Culturefy, we love helping organizations empower their people to create what we call personal culture strategies, where they're able to align their professional goals with the organizational goals, to your point, Wayne, because that's critical, right? Making sure that me as an individual know how I'm contributing, how my goals are moving the needle forward in organizational objectives, so I can feel that I have purpose and belonging in my organization. But at the same time, I bring life experiences, I bring other skill sets and interests to the table that are unique to me. And so, the more that my organization, the more that leadership can know and be aware of those, they can be investing in those so that maybe in the future, maybe I pivot a little bit outside of my current career path into an opportunity that is needed and critical for the organization. But rather than going externally, they're able to hire internally with somebody, tap into a new skill set, which keeps this next generation interested and excited to be a part of what's happening in the organization, and just opens up whole new opportunities to these changing career and career pathways that you guys both have mentioned. And so that's something that we get really excited about talking about how do we empower our people to look at their job as more than just a 9 to 5. It's something that can have longevity and offer flexibility and allow me to grow as a person and a professional. So definitely agree with everything that you guys are saying on that. And I did want to tap into something that you guys had mentioned. I mean, Lucinda, you had mentioned about the technology piece. So I'd love just to jump there and kind of get your thoughts on how technology is being leveraged or can be leveraged in today's landscape when it comes to talent management, skills development, leadership learning.
Yeah, gosh, I mean, technology it's been part of all of this for a long, long time, right? I mean, our old applicant tracking systems where we scanned resumes and, put them into a system and all of that, that's been around for a long time. But it's evolved, so much in recent years, especially with AI. And we talk about AI every day. We read about AI every day. ChatGPT has only been around for just over a year now. And it's just changing so quickly. And there are so many tools that we can leverage, from, the hiring process to the development of employees. And I think, it's enabling us, and it goes to Kristen's point earlier about, knowing your employees, knowing their experiences, their skills, and what they want to do. And I think this technology is enabling us to do this more and more. It can help us predict things now rather than having to react to things or, react to needs. One kind of quick example, and this is a little bit kind of future looking, I think, is to have a platform where, you've got, especially folks coming into the workforce, they want to advance, they want to develop. They're like, before they even start their first week, they're like, well, what's the next thing for me? When am I getting promoted? So, and how do I get there? But using information that a company already has to put into an AI-backed database where employees can go into a system and say, okay, I'm an associate right now and I want to become a partner. How do I do that? And the system can take all of this information, billing records, experience, backgrounds of people who've been successful in an organization or a firm, put all of that together and tell the employee, here's kind of what you need to do. Here are the gaps. Here's the training that you need to take. Here are the experiences that you need to have. And to me, that is so powerful because for so many years, being in HR, and Wayne, I'm sure you've heard this before, it's like, okay, what's my career path? What's my career path? What do I need to do? So to have something like this in the near future, and it's happening now, at your fingertips is just so powerful. It will save so much time and so much money. And who's to say that though what's there is actually going to be the employee's path, but at least it helps to paint a picture, which I think these days it's not an easy thing to do. So that gets me really excited to be able to have the capabilities to do that. And I think if organizations can do this and they can articulate it to their employees and articulate it to their candidates, that is so powerful. I mean, it's such a huge attraction and retention tool. So, and that's just one aspect of something that I know that's out there.
What I would add in there, I think that technology with the hybrid workforce that we have, and even those that are dedicated remote, that is becoming what you just talked about, and that is more and more critical. Because there isn't the ability to, well, especially even with global organizations or multinational or even national level organizations where you have individuals in different locations working remotely, hybrid, all of that says and guides us to, we need to have something that is employee driven, leader guided, that employees can reach out to, tap into that technology. And like you said, whether or not the exact path plays out isn't as important as they feel like they are constantly having the opportunity to pursue their future, to be developing towards their future. And then as an organization, to make sure that's framed out in a way that the phrase I love is, it's about readiness. Because at least what I've observed in my career is very few people, their career path actually maps exactly to what they thought it was going to map to, especially those who truly do grow to that level of partner or CEO or other executive, that a lot come out of college and first their career of, okay, I'm so excited. What's next? And by the way, how long will it take me to be CEO? And of course, we don't want to break the news to them that it's a lot longer than they're thinking. But the individuals I've observed who actually grow into those opportunities, yes, they will pursue areas of interest and areas where they think they'll want to go, but they also bring with it, and this comes from some mentoring too, of helping them realize as you pursue those opportunities, don't get a mindset of checking the box. It's not just about completing certain courses. Create a mindset of, I'm going to be ready for when the next opportunity opens up. The next door, the window, I just need to be ready. Meaning, I'm constantly learning, I'm constantly stretching, I'm constantly picking the minds of those who are further down career journey. It doesn't necessarily have to be up the ranks of leadership. It could be somebody in a similar or same role or a role I'm interested in, but I can pick their brain and ask them what they've utilized in their career to be successful and make sure I'm ready to take on those challenges or at least ready to be stretched when the opportunity comes. And then I can raise my hand and say, yeah, I'll take that on. Is it a little scary? Sure. But one of the things I learned earliest in my career that really has enabled my growth and development was I actually wasn't even in HR. I was in the marketing and market research world in grocery retail. And we had a saying in our retail development team of, yeah, we can do that. And anytime a challenge would come, we'd approach it with that attitude. Then we would circle back together as a team and we go, oh my gosh, what have we just promised? But then we knew that because we knew how to get the right stakeholders in the room, that the answer would be in the room. We just had to tap into it, make sure we asked the right questions. And I think that's one of the challenges that I would give people leaders is make sure as these new people are coming into your organization, that one, you use the technology to help them see and tap into opportunities and prepare themselves for the opportunities, but also make sure you help them learn how to identify and ask the material questions, the right questions. Because one of the key things that I think haunts everything from an executive leader to a frontline individual is if we become solution focused before asking the right questions, then there's a good chance we're going to come up with the wrong answer. But if we learn first to ask the right questions or the material questions, then we've increased the probability, not a guarantee, but we've increased the probability we will find the best answer, the better answer for the situation. And I think that's one of the key steps in development. And that's the part that leader guiding plays into. Employees can drive as long as the technology's there, the information's there, the resources are there, they can drive and push towards learning the things that they want to learn, they're interested in, they see will make a difference. But it's that leader guiding, that leadership guiding that helps them figure out, well, how do I now take this new knowledge and convert it into a skill through application? And how do I know to ask the right questions? And what are the right questions to make sure I'm grabbing the right tool out of my toolkit for this situation? When does it call for a wrench? When does it call for a screwdriver? When does it call for a hammer? But I have to be able to identify that. And to me, that's where the balance is. Technology opens up a lot of opportunities, but that technology needs to be supported by ongoing, whether it's through virtual, face-to-face, whatever the case is, ongoing one-on-one mentoring and coaching and guidance.
Oh, absolutely. There's such a human side of this. We can't overlook it. I mean, we can't say press a button and it solves all the problems because it's just another tool, as you talked about your toolkit. And the humanization of all of this, I think, is really key. And having those conversations between the employee and the manager, leadership and employees, all of those things are so, so important. And I always like to say there's no substitute for, communication. And the best is face to face, of course, but we don't get that so much these days. We get screen to screen, but that's still good too.
So true.
Yeah,
And that's one positive. There wasn't a lot of positive with the pandemic, but the one blessing or positive that came out of the pandemic is it opened up and pushed technology. I mean, Teams and Zoom were really clunky at the beginning of the
Oh gosh,
technology
yeah, but
of
we
the
all learned
pandemic.
it.
But of course, yeah, but necessity is the mother of
Yeah.
invention or evolution of invention. And we've been blessed in the regard that the technology has enabled us to where years ago, global organizations, it was a phone call.
Oh
And
yeah.
then maybe if your manager flew into town once every few months, that's when you got your face to face.
Hmm.
Well, now they can still fly in and have that interpersonal interaction, but in between, that screen to screen does add more, as you called it, humanization and interface, because now you can key into body language.
Yeah.
You can read a person's countenance, and that is definitely a step ahead of the old long distance.
Yeah. I think
yeah,
we all look
absolutely.
better though face to face. I don't like this, these things with lighting and things changing and all that. I'm not so good at that.
Me neither, but that may be a reflection of how many years we've been doing what we've been doing.
There's true. There's certain things that you can never replace from human interaction face to face. But thanks to the technology, we're getting a whole lot closer, which is really exciting. And I love what you guys are saying about that humanization about technology, right? Because our whole approach with AI technology, I know there's can be a lot of questions of, oh no, we don't want computers taking over. But what we have developed is what we call a fused intelligence, which is blending human expertise with the power of AI technology. That's what powers all of our Culturify efforts and platforms to do exactly what you guys are saying. So I think it's just helpful to mention that as we are exploring AI, there's a lot of developments that you guys have both mentioned to move the needle forward, but also maintain that human connection, that human led position. And just a couple things I wanted to also mention when it comes to learning and development. One of the things that we've been really excited to see is to utilize AI technology to help recommend learning modules and training opportunities and even live learning events, right? Sometimes in huge organizations, like you both mentioned, hybrid, virtual, you have headquarters all over the globe. It's hard to know, one, who all works in your organization, who is open to mentorship, who is leading a relevant learning course that might be taking place, and what are the latest learning technology or learning courses and modules available. Well, AI can now analyze that personal culture strategy that I have developed in my profile as an employee and recommend upcoming trainings, upcoming events, potential mentors that will help me move along in that journey, which I think is really, really exciting. Take some of the pressure off of people managers and managers to make sure they know exactly who's doing what and how to support their people. Obviously, nothing replaces that one-on-one that a manager will have and that knowledge for their people, but it really can help speed things along and just make sure that there's opportunities automatically being recommended to their people. And then another thing that we've been really excited to see, for for me, I've leaned a lot on really the creative technical people when it comes to developing learning, training modules, curriculum, video editing. With AI now, there's so many opportunities to be able to leverage AI to help create those learning courses. So as things are changing, Wayne, I think you mentioned that as things are changing, we can create learning modules or events or videos to go out quickly that can be real time, and it can really be done quickly thanks to the power of AI. So it just allows us to be more agile and adaptive to respond to changing environments internally and externally within our organization. And so I think there's really a lot of excitement around the possibility, and it's becoming more accessible. So being able to utilize the technology and the different tools out there to really help your leadership team, but also your people to be better, faster, and smarter, to move the needle towards those organizational goals is really exciting to see how technology really has developed and move forward in that way. We're getting close to the end of our time, which this hour always goes by so quickly. So I kind of want to just throw out, as we look to the future. So it'll be two-part questions. You can take whichever one you feel you want to answer. Um, what about the role of leadership in implementing and moving the needle in all of these ways that we talked about? Uh, how can leadership help build cultures that really develop their people, invest their people, and align their goals in that way? And or looking ahead, what are some trends that you see shaping the future of talent management and skills development? I'll kind of leave both of those out there and would love to hear from both of you as we kind of wrap up our conversation today.
Yeah, Kristen, I want to just jump on the role of leadership. And I think really it's leadership helping to build a learning culture in an organization. Which again, all of that's tied to the brand and, the culture, but having that aspect in an organization that is, a learning culture, an environment that promotes continuous learning, for everybody, not just, the employees, but the executives. A lot of times you see, well, I'm an executive, I'm here, I don't need to be developed now, which is crazy. But, development and continuous learning across the entire organization, even the board, I would suggest that too. But, looking at in a learning culture, well, what is a learning culture? Well, we're an organization where we're open to new ideas and perspectives, not saying, oh, well, that's nice, but we've always done it this way and we're successful, so why do we need to change? No, I mean, a real openness to new ideas and perspectives. And then, learning from our mistakes and our failures. So many organizations, and I just had a conversation the other day with somebody about this. People are so afraid to make a mistake and so afraid of failure that they don't act on certain things sometimes. So an organization that really promotes people learning from mistakes and learning from failures, because we know all of the great inventions and the great geniuses failed so many times, before they got to that great invention, but really learning from those and not saying, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble because, I made a mistake or whatever. Collaboration and knowledge sharing is so important too. I've been in organizations that are so it's changed a lot over the years, but are so siloed and so, insulated. Maybe it's the function or the department, and they're just so focused on what they're doing and not looking out to other parts of the organization to collaborate and share knowledge. I think it goes back to what Wayne said about what you need is in the room, right? You don't have to go out to consultants. But the organization, and you can do this through technology, through collaboration platforms, through creating a community, through knowledge sharing, and having a platform in an organization to know where the knowledge is, but then go out and seek that knowledge in the organization and, pull that knowledge and introduce people, have expert groups in an organization where maybe you've got people in different departments, but bringing those folks together. Obviously, a sense of belonging in an organization, a supportive, inclusive organization that really values, the belonging of all individuals. And I think this is the crux of what we talked about today, opportunities for growth and development. So I think those are really the elements of a learning culture. And if a company can actively promote those things and measure those and determine, are we being successful? Where do we need to correct course? I think that is really a key role of leadership to promote that type of culture.
Absolutely agree. And to what you said, Lucinda, with regards to how often, and even if it only happens for one person, that's too often, the executives take the position of, I've arrived. And even sometimes, well, not sometimes, if they take that position cascades through the organization. And to different degrees, people start settling in their seats and getting comfortable. That's the risk of becoming antiquated and letting the next competitor overtake you, and then you were last year's news. It is about life learning. It is about that learning organization and beginning the tone is absolutely set at the top that executives first and foremost are recognizing, and I know I've used this phrase a few times before, but it's about a transformational mindset that they want the organization itself to continue to transform. Well, an organization, you pull the people out and you've got a lot of empty rooms and technology and everything else just sitting there, doing nothing, providing zero value. I don't care the product or service an organization is providing to its customers. The movement, the value is through the people. And when leaders understand the power of how their organization can transform, by first and foremost, them constantly challenging their own transformation, then I see that and have experienced that then they set the tone and hopefully pass that message and enablement all the way through the organization to challenge everyone to be transforming with some guidance and direction, most definitely. That's part of the role as you cascade through leadership. But making sure that leadership understands that we're about transformation, not just transactions. And because we're about transformations, yeah, we're going to have mistakes because you don't get anywhere new without venturing into unknown territories and messing up in the process. And you fall on your face. One of the greatest experiences I had in my career, I worked for an organization where starting at the president of the company, if you got into a one-on-one setting or sometimes even a meeting setting, those senior leaders would say, they would talk about, share a message with the group, whatever, talk about the vision, the direction of the organization. But before they finish their message, one of the key things they would say is, let me tell you about my big screw up that made a big difference in my career. And they owned it. And in owning it and sharing the lessons they learned from it, they created a culture of permission to mess up, to learn from it, and to not try and hide it, but to share it so others could learn from your mess up and not stumble in the same spot or the same way. So that's a learning organization. The whole organization was learning from each individual or each team's experiences and getting that much better. And yeah, again, I can't be passionate enough about the importance of leadership in building a transformational organization and inviting the employees to be willing and desiring followers and engagers in that transformation.
Absolutely. I mean, I love it. It all comes down to our people as our most valuable asset, but building cultures that are safe to grow and to evolve and feeling invested in by our organizations. I mean, that keeps people, it helps you have people that are ready for the skill sets of tomorrow, right? And it also helps your brand, right? Because our people can be our best brand ambassadors because if they love where they work, they're going to tell other people. And that's going to go a long way in improving or adding to your brand awareness and brand equity. So it's all intertwined. As we mentioned at the beginning, it's not a one size fits all. But it's so critical in moving the needle forward. And in 2024, this is more critical than ever because 2025 is right around the corner. And if half of overall global employees are going to need some sort of upskilling, we got to start today. And I think AI can do a lot to help move the needle in that. But thank you both so much for your time today. I know we just scratched the surface. We could be here so much longer unpacking all of this. I want to just make sure that we're able to drop in our chat some of your contact information. So if anyone who's tuning in live, they can reach out, connect with you both on LinkedIn. We want this to be a community where we're bringing together leaders in this space, and we want those who are attending live and our panelists to just really be able to build a community of people in their peers who are facing these challenges day in and day out, and being able to share what they're hearing and learning and being able to implement some of those things that are being discussed. So we really hope for those who attended live that all of this really sparked some, conversations, some dialogue with your teams, and that it really goes a long way in helping you create effective learning cultures in your organization this year. So thank you both, Wayne and Lucinda, for being here today.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Kristen. It was a lot of fun. Thanks.
And then
Thanks,
it
Lucinda.
always,
Pleasure.
Thanks, Wayne.
it's always a great conversation, and this time goes by so fast. But I do want to mention for next week, we will be back again, March 7th at 11 a.m. Eastern, and we will be talking about one of our favorite topics around here at Culturefy, employer branding. How do you enhance your employer brand reputation? What role does culture play? And how can AI technology maybe help you guys move the needle across the board? So mark your calendars. You don't want to miss this conversation. And, if some of this conversation around learning and AI and culture and branding made you kind of have some, well, I wonder what this would look like for me and my organization personally, but you'd like to chat through some of your specific challenges, we would love to hear from you. Please don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach out to us via our website or at info@culturefy.com, or connect with your representatives if they got you here today. So thank you guys for being here today, and we will see you guys next time. And thank you again.